Hello and welcome into Hoosier Gameday, brought to you by the Hoosier Network, where each week we'll bring you everything you need to know surrounding IU football. My name is Noel Fary. Alongside me is Liv Clements. And Liv, we are officially in full swing college football mode now. So how are you feeling after this week's past matchup against Ohio State?
I mean, no, I bring the tea every time. So it's going to be fun. It's going to be exciting. OSU was a fun game to watch. It was going to be interesting to see how they played as a new team. OSU also coming in. You didn't know what to expect either. But I feel like it was a good setup for IU. And so I think it'll be fun going into the rest of the season and watch how they change, grow, and what they figure out with QB situations, maybe offensively and defensively.
Definitely. Well, we have a lot to break down in this week's episode. It was definitely an interesting game this past weekend. But with more on the matchup, let's hear from the Hoosier Network's very own Audrey Marr.
The 4 words college football fans have been waiting to hear for months. College football is back. The Indiana Hoosiers opened up their 2023 campaign with a 23-3 loss against the number 3 team in the nation, the Ohio State Buckeyes. Audrey Marr for the Hoosier Network. A big question this offseason was who would be throwing the ball for the Hoosiers. Many were surprised to see it be number 15 Brendan Sorsby leading the offense at the start of the game.
Went through the whole thing. I said we made our decision. Our decision was to play them both in the first 2 games. So Sorsby started this week. Taven starts next week. And the guys know that. They knew that ahead of time.
Both Taven Jackson and Brendan Sorsby got equal playing time in today's game, but Tom Allen said that he hopes to stick with one quarterback through the season after at least week 2. Both quarterbacks said that it is tough to get into a rhythm on the field when alternating, but it doesn't seem to affect their relationship on or off the field.
He's one of my best friends. Yeah, we hang out pretty much every day. We're always doing stuff together. He's my guy, so I'm rooting for him when he's out there. He's rooting for me whenever I'm out there. So it's no bad blood. So whatever happens, we know whatever's best for the team. We want that.
Coming out of halftime, Indiana was able to hold off the Buckeyes to 10 points, and that was highly contributed by Indiana's defense. The combination of Aaron Casey and Indiana's newcomers showed promise for the rest of the season.
I thought that we did a good job of establishing the line of scrimmage defensively. Made it hard on them. We gave up a couple creases there, but not very many. And we've struggled. I mean, you can go back and look at the stats if I need to help you on that, but we have not done a good job stopping the run against these guys. I think there's a lot to build off there on that, without question. You got to stop the run, and we got some talented DBs that help us when they do have to throw it. Some guys that can pressure them. So,
despite opening up their season with a loss, Indiana still has a lot of football left to play, and Indiana will look to even their record with a win as they will be facing the Indiana State Sycamores this coming Friday under the lights at 7 p.m. For the Hoosier Network, I've been Audrey Marr.
Thank you, Audrey, for breaking down the game. Looking into it a little bit more, Noel, how do you feel? IU played against OSU, so how are you feeling about it truly? What's your insight? Give me a little breakdown.
So when your team puts up 3 points, it's really hard to look at that and say that that wasn't a bad game. But I think if you look at everything in its entirety, you look at OSU coming into this year, the bright spot for this team was the defense. There were newcomers. Andre, he came in and made a big difference on defense. Andre Carter. He had a tackle for loss. He showed up. He showed out. There were a couple guys that did make a difference on defense, but overall, with the quarterback situation, it really just left the offense completely stranded. There was so much to be desired there, but yeah, the bright spot is that you only allowed OSU to score in the 20s, which I think is a win if you look at it for the Hoosiers.
I mean, I think that's important, like you said. There were stars defensively. Aaron Casey was a big name that kept coming up into the crowd. And defensively, they looked strong, but you had that offense quarterback moment that just reeked, I feel like, on the stadium. You couldn't really get into the game defensively looking into that. I think that it was important to say that IU did only hold OSU to 23. Yes, they still scored all 4 quarters, and IU only scored in the second quarter with that field goal. But like you said, though, it's important to find those bright spots because, again, that's what's going to be bright, hopefully, going into the further games.
Definitely, yeah. I mean, on offense, Jalen Lucas, he was able to come up with 24 rushing yards, but that was on 11 attempts. And we talked about last week how we wanted to see him get implemented into the offense. And for him to come out there, 2.4 yards per carry, I don't think his talent was necessarily showcased to its full potential. and that comes with, I mean, now at this point in the season, they're still figuring things out. So we'll just have to wait and see how the season progresses.
Yeah, I 100% agree. Well, those are our thoughts, but we'd like to hear a bit more from the minds of here at the Hoosier Network. Up next, our special guest with a deep dive into what went wrong for the Hoosiers this week. Welcome back, Hoosier Network. I'm here joined with Austin Platt as my guest today. And Austin, Lil Birdie might have told me that Coach Allen was recruiting you to start quarterback tomorrow. Can we just tell the fans that true, false?
I don't feel my phone buzzing, so maybe not quite yet. I don't know if after week 1 they really need me. This is a week like 8 problem.
We'll see. Maybe Michigan game.
Yeah,
we'll just see how it goes.
I'll be fine. 100,000 people, they'll be rooting me on.
Easy peasy. So going into that offensively, everyone already knows quarterback positions were a little rocky. Offensively, IU wasn't even really in the game. But I want to kind of switch sides and see, so do you feel like it was IU truly struggling offensively, or maybe OSU was just too strong defensively?
It has to be a little bit of both. I mean, obviously Ohio State's defense, that's going to be their strength this year. They have 3 top, first-round picks projected in the draft, especially up front. But, I mean, Indiana offensively, the biggest issue is the fact that Jalen Lucas, arguably your best offensive player, was used as a running back at 5'7". He's not the biggest guy. We know what he can do in open space. We saw that on the punt returns. I know a couple got negated because of penalties. But the fact that you don't have him out wide as a wideout is mind-boggling to me. I think that's a big reason why this offense struggled. The running backs, I know the 3 of them, of course, Christian Turner, the Wake Forest transfer, and Josh Henderson, who was pretty good last year. They looked good. The O-line looked a lot better considering they're healthy, at least to start the year. But there are a lot of questions, and I think you got to have Jalen Lucas somewhere other than running back.
I think that was an important thing that you said, how there weren't many notable players offensively. There weren't many. Everyone was looking at the quarterbacks, hoping they would change the game. But like you said, there weren't a lot of players that were like, oh, he's doing really good, or, oh, make sure he gets the ball, he's on a run. They struggled that part. And like you said, that's a strong part of why maybe OSU defensively knew what they were going to do and took over and only let IU score a field goal in the second quarter. But I think it's important for OSU to hit on OSU a little, because it was a close game for an IU versus Ohio State game. I think a lot of people expected it to be a blowout. A lot of fans might have left at halftime hoping that it wasn't going to be a blowout, and it wasn't. But does this change the kind of perspective for OSU? Does OSU maybe look a little weaker going into this season now that they almost had IU not do so good, but they didn't look that bad either?
For me, we knew Ohio State, their weakness going in was going to be their quarterback. I mean, you look around them, the offense, you have 2 of the best receivers in the country, Marvin Harrison Jr., Mike Ibuka. Those guys were only held to like 5 catches for like 40 yards or something like that. So I think that's a big issue. And their quarterback, it's a hot mess. I mean, Kyle McCord did not look great. They brought in their second guy for a few passes, but he didn't look fantastic either. Neither of them were really comfortable in the pocket. And, I mean, this is an Ohio State team. The quarterback's the most important position probably in major sports. And the fact that Ohio State's quarterback right now, they don't really even know who their starter is. So, figuratively, we think it's going to be McCord going forward. But, I mean, all around him, you have an all-star team. And the fact that this offense wasn't able to do much. I know the defense, we feel like it's going to be Indiana's strength this year. But I think there are a lot more questions. I think we learned a lot more about Ohio State in this game, Liv, than we did about Indiana.
I think that's fair to say, in the sense of, it seems like the Big Ten right now, they're all struggling with quarterback positions. And so I think it's fair to say that going into this game, everyone was looking at OSU and IU, what both of them are going to do, the plays they were thinking. So I think that's important. I think they laid it out correctly. And like you said, going back to the players, it wasn't that IU didn't have strong offensive players. You had E.J. Williams coming from Clemson that was out there. You didn't see much of him. And then, like you said, with Jalen Lucas, kind of confused on what his position was, kind of confused on where he was on the field. So I think that would play a big part too, going into ISU and further games as well. So with the ISU game coming up tomorrow, Friday, 7 p.m. night game, still home for IU, what do you think they really need to hit on to change offensively? Is it going to be those quarterbacks? We know Tom Allen said that it's still the tryouts, but even offensively outside of quarterbacks, the running back position, wide receiver position, what do you think they really need to change outside of that for this flow to get going into like Louisville at Lucas Oil, for example?
Yeah, the biggest thing is the quarterbacks for this team. And I think Indiana very secretly is taking a page out of Michigan's book from last year. J.J. McCarthy, Cade McNamara, basically what Jim Harbaugh did last year was give both of them a game to start, and then, well, hey, we'll figure out a starter from there. This is, I think, what Indiana's doing, and I know Tom Allen's kept everything under the rug for 2 straight off seasons over Indiana's starting quarterback is going to be. We really don't know. I mean, the fact that 2 drives in to that first game, we see Taven Jackson out there to start the 3rd drive. Are you benching Brennan Sorsby for his first 2 drives? I mean, they didn't really go anywhere. And it's the fact that we don't really know. I mean, I don't think I'm supposed to know. I don't think the team really knows right now who their starter is, considering the plan all along was to have both of them start 1 game each. Of course, starting Ohio State for Sorsby, much different than starting against Indiana State for Taven Jackson. But you have to figure out who your starting quarterback is. I don't think Indiana really has that right now. And the fact that they can't be running these, RPOs. I thought I was watching the Army-Navy game for the first, few drives when they got the triple option going. They got Jalen Lucas, Josh Henderson, another guy to throw out there. So Walt Bell really needs to open up the playbook. You got to allow the quarterback to throw the ball. And I think neither one of Indiana's quarterbacks to start against Ohio State really had that presence in the pocket. They didn't really look comfortable. Sorsby looked a bit better when he came back in the second half. But, I mean, the fact that in the first half, there were only like 2 or 3 guys that even caught passes or even were targeted for Indiana. Cam Camper, his name, we didn't really mention. You mentioned E.J. Williams, the Clemson transfer. There are a lot of new faces on this team. But the fact that they didn't really throw the ball, it really makes me scratch my head.
I have to agree, and I think it's important that you mentioned how with offense going and changing the quarterback so much, that has to disrupt the flow of the team just in general, with you never knowing who's starting, who's getting benched, when they're coming back in. That's important too. So I think going into ISU, it will be important to see who starts in the sense, but then also how they're going to finish off. I personally think that Sorsby is going to be the one who really shines going in this ISU game. I think that he has more experience than Taven, but also I think will be able to put himself out there more and show that, yes, I'll lead this team, be the player that will run and try to get a touchdown more than less. I think Taven might be the type I want to pass the ball more. So I think that will be a big play. To finish off, go ahead, give us what you think IU score will be at the end of the 4th quarter.
It's going to be a low-scoring game, I think. Indiana State, not a very good team. I will say there'll probably be like a safety in there somewhere. This will be a weird Friday night game. I will go Indiana wins comfortably. I'll say 26-3.
Okay.
The defense will score a touchdown. There'll be a special teams touchdown. I want to see who scores more points, the Indiana offense or the Indiana defense. That's my game. That's the game I'm looking for.
Okay, that's fair to say. I guess we'll see. It was so good having you. Thank you, Austin.
Thank you.
I'm going to throw us back to Noel, where he'll have a guest on here as well, where they'll break down this quarterback, maybe disaster, maybe miracle. We'll see.
Thanks, guys. And Audrey, long time no see. How are you feeling after this weekend's game?
I love what I'm doing. I'm feeling good. I'm feeling good about the defense, but I think the offense definitely needs a little bit of work to do, but I'm excited about this season.
Well, we saw Liv and Austin touch on it a little bit, this quarterback situation. I mean, to have a 2-game audition of sorts now for Tom Allen, and we all thought that the offseason was the audition. They kept saying, it's a 50-50 shot. Whoever wins it gets it. But do you think that this is the right way to go about this quarterback situation, by taking 2 games of your season and using them as an audition?
I think it's what Indiana's used to. I mean, we've seen it in the past couple seasons, even in the 2020 season. I mean, they were doing it between Penix and Tuttle. I mean, Indiana's used to it. I think they always stick by their roots every season. That's what we've seen. Whether that's a good thing or a bad thing, we don't know. We'll see later on in the season, because we really don't know enough about Sorsby and Jackson enough at all. But I think from what I've seen, I don't know if it's working yet. I think they need to test out their weapons a little bit more until we know.
Yeah, and I think that doing it against Ohio State, one of the toughest opponents you're going to face all year, is interesting, because, you go from OSU now to Indiana State. How do you gauge performance in one game to another? I mean, that is opposite ends of the spectrum for IU.
Yeah, I think it'll tell us a lot. I think it's good that they did start out their season with such a big opponent, because that's what we see what they're like under the big stage. And I think it really did show what the defense can do. It didn't show enough potential of the offense, I don't think, which I think is what we will see this upcoming weekend against ISU. I don't know how they'll show it, if they're going to run the ball more than throw the ball, which I think they do need to throw the ball a little bit more, and I hope they do. But if they stick with running the ball, I don't know if we'll see as much potential as we can.
Do you think that you saw things from each quarterback that you liked on the field?
Yeah, I think Sorsby, I think he has definitely a good arm that we haven't seen in a while. We're used to seeing a run game a lot with this offense. And I think Jackson definitely does run the ball a little bit more. If Indiana wants to stick to their roots, I think they'll stick with more running the ball, obviously, like I've said. But I think later in the season, they're going to go with Dexter Williams because this offense is what they're used to.
Yeah.
They're used to Dexter Williams. Cam Camper's used to Dexter Williams. And I think once they're able to determine who they want to throw the ball to, and once they find the system, I think that they'll stick with one quarterback, whether that's Sorsby, Jackson, Williams, we don't know. And I think that's something we'll find out by week 3.
Yeah, I think you're right, Audrey. I think that at that point in the season when Williams is ready to return, if someone hasn't really shown out, then it's his job. You know, he's going to come back in and take it right back, because I just don't know if these receivers, these poor receivers for IU, are going to be getting passes to them that they can even catch. I mean, there's so much talent there and potential. Austin mentioned it earlier. Jalen Lucas, get him out there catching deep balls. But if they don't have a quarterback to go out there and deliver it to them, then what does this offense have?
I know they have so many offensive weapons that they got this offseason who aren't being utilized. They are overutilizing Jalen Lucas, and that can be bad for him at the end of the season, which we don't want to see. I think once they find out the system that Jalen Lucas can really just be a powerhouse in, I think that's when Indiana will be at its best.
No, I definitely agree, Audrey. And before we're done here, I have to get your prediction as well. What do you think this Indiana State game is going to look like?
I said on the podcast, I said it was going to be a shutout, but I think they're going to at least score a field goal. Right now. I'm going to go
It'll be
with
IU last week.
Yeah. Yeah, we'll go with that. I think Indiana State will score a field goal. I think Indiana will do half and half with defensive touchdowns and offensive touchdowns. We'll see if the offense does finally start to pick up. But for score-wise, I'm going to go 31-3. Okay. Indiana.
I like that. Well, thank you, Audrey, for coming on. We can't wait to hear more from you this season, reporting for the Hoosiers. To round things off today, Liv and I will give you our thoughts on this week's upcoming matchup against Indiana State. Week 1 is in the books, and now the Hoosiers have their eyes set on Indiana State, who did not have the greatest season opener either, Liv. They have a lot to be desired, got shut out by Eastern Illinois. I want to know from you, what is your prediction for this weekend's matchup?
I feel like this weekend's matchup, basing it off ISU's loss to Eastern Illinois, IU losing to OSU, both had good plays, both had bad plays. I think both teams are not equal. I think IU has the upper edge over them for sure, being a Big Ten team. I'm going to go 35-7 with IU winning. I do think that they can excel and do more. I think their defense is just so strong that I can't really see ISU really excelling past their defense. Offensively, like you mentioned earlier, if they pass the ball more and they can really set on a quarterback, I think this could be a total shutout in Memorial Stadium, which I think that's what the fans are looking for. But I'm actually interested in what you're thinking, because I feel like maybe I'm being too optimistic, but I want to know how you feel.
No, I agree with you, Liv. I think that this is an opportunity for everybody on the Hoosier offense to get a second chance. This is going to be one of the easiest opponents they'll play all year. And that, hypothetically, this should be one of the easiest opponents they face. It's going to be an opportunity for both quarterbacks to maybe find a rhythm. We'll get more of a gauge, because that game against OSU, you can't even really look at that and get much information out of it at all. But Indiana State, overall, their offense was pretty stagnant. Their defense did not do great against Eastern Illinois' quarterback. They did a really good job spreading out the ball. I think the Hoosiers will put some touchdowns up this week. My prediction will be 27-7. I think Indiana State will sneak into the end zone once.
Okay, I agree.
Yeah.
We'll see.
We'll see.
You never know.
We'll see. But that is all we have for you this week. Thank you all so much for tuning in to Hoosier Gameday. We'll be back the same time next week with all the news, analysis, and breakdowns that you need. Until then, we'll catch you later.